Welcome with yet another session of Worldwide in 20 minutes. As you all know that every weekend we aspire to bring the most vital topics on the table. So as usual, we are going to immerse ourselves in an eye-opening discussion today. We see that Sri Lanka is recovering stage from a serious crisis of amidst inflation remaining at 49%, rupee appreciating against the dollar, and slow-paced growth in the tourism sector. And we are also tied to foreign and domestic debt restructuring program. So what's also important is that if we take Sri Lankan financial industry, it is also confronting the spillover impact of this array of crises. Hence, to reveal all in all, we are thrilled to connect with these three eminent personalities representing one of the Sri Lankan's most trusted, recognized, and purposeful banks. Please welcome Ms. Sanuri Samarasinghe, Ms. Hashini Rathnayake, and Ms. Inesha Dilshani from Hatton National Bank in Sri Lanka. So, without further ado, let me get into my first question. What actually happened and why?
Yes, Prameel. This is what actually happened. The nation is coping with a crippling forex problem of unparalleled positions, and because of the significant forex exchange shortage, it is become harder to bank to fund imports. There are shortage of basic goods including foods, medicines, gas, gasolines as a result of the halving of foreign workers' remittances, another important source of foreign currency, and the free fall into tourism revenue because of the lack of trust, or because they use grey market channels to convert their foreign profits at a better currency rate for a few more rupees. Some experts and migrant workers may be holding into earning abroad. Not only that, we have completely removed our foreign currency and swap limitation as a result of the recent waiving of swatching rating downgrades and announcement of the suspicion of external debt. So we have postponed the distribution of currency to our import clients. As a result, many of whom have been with us for three to 4 decades. These long-term exclusive partnerships are based on dependability and the trust, but it won't get us very far. The most significant structural issues that has to be rectified in this one. So, and it is the result nation having sacrificed its foreign exchange reserves for too long in order to preserve the currency, and instead the whole should have been removed gradually to prevent the sharp overnight devaluation from 200 rupees to 390 rupees versus the US dollars, which added to the strain on Sri Lankan economy and people as price adjusts overshot. When it comes to the H.L.N.C.Weerawansha financial statistics data, interest income increased by 171% to 76.2 billion rupees in December quarter, while interest cost increased by 236% to 42 billion rupees. The bank's net interest income increased by 119% to 34 billion rupees over the same period, and after 2 years of printing money to keep break down caused a currency crisis and government to default on the foreign debt, Sri Lanka's interest rates spiked dramatically in 2022. Banks in Sri Lanka are required to set aside money for both bad loans and government debts. Moving to your second question, why it has happening, I would like to choose some sub topics for giving reasons for the topic. They are heavy debts, debt trap, tourism, not only that, corruption and impunity, external debts, and so on. So when it comes to the heavy debt, significant tax cut adopted by the Sri Lankan government under the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa led to an increase in budget deficits. the fiscal and monetary policy of the government were impacted these changes, and the pay as you earn, that means pay tax, was eliminated, and the VAT was lowered to 8%, and corporate tax was reduced from 28% to 24%, and the 2% nation leading tax that very supportive to the infrastructure development was also eliminated, and a 33.5% decrease in registered taxpayer was brought on higher tax-free threshold due to the large loss in tax revenue. Rating agencies reduced the subverging credit rating, making it more challenges to incur additional debt, and the highest amount allegedly printed by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka in a single day in 2022 was 119.08 billion rupees on 6th of April 2022. According to the reports, in 2022, a total of 432.76 billion was invested in the financial markets. When it comes to the next point, that is debt trap, and the loans given to the Sri Lanka by Exim Bank of China to build the Mattala Mahinda Rajapaksa International Airport and the Hambantota International Port have been cited by several observers and examples for debt trap, diplomacy, and predatory lending. And both initiatives ended up becoming worthless white elephants. When it comes to the tourism, that is very important scenario, because that area, the tourism portion, the GDP of the Sri Lanka was boosted by the tourism sector by more than 10%. And the business was negatively impacted by in 2019 due to the Easter Sunday bombs attack, and the COVID-19 outbreak made recovery impossible. And in 2018, tourism generated $4.4 billion and made up 5.6% of the nation GDP by 2020. But however, the figure has dropped to just 0.8%. So, and the other areas and corruption and impurity and external debt. So, Prameel, I think that would be my answer.
That's a very insightful response, Ms. Hashini. So, what impact do these situations have on our Sri Lankan economy and society?
Yes, Prameel. So, if I first talk about the economic impact, we can look at many destinations. The impact of elevated global commodity prices, the monetization of fiscal deficits, currency depreciation, and food supply constraints as a result of the 2021 ban on the chemical fertilizers led to headline inflation to reach its peak at an unheard of 69.8% in September, before getting settled at 57.2% in 2022. And the central bank has increased policy rates by a total of 1,050 basis points since January 2022 in an effort to reduce inflation. Furthermore, 500,000 employment in the industry and services lost as a result of economic downturn, and backup lower-paying agricultural positions were unable to make up for the lost income. The economic decline, when coupled up with rising living expenses, caused national and urban poverty to double to 25% and triple to 15% respectively. In nested regions, 52% of the population lives in the poverty as a result of crisis. Another major effect is the decline in the foreign remittances. So we know lower remittances, a source of income for 7.2% of the population, contributed to income losses and to the adoption of negative coping mechanisms for the increase in the risk of food insecurity and stunting. When it was floating, the currency rupee lost 78% of its value versus the US dollar between March to the period of May 2022. The devaluation of the entire year was kept to 81% thanks to the switch back to the managed float in the addition to the current foreign currency management plan. However, despite the mandated restoration and the conversion requirements, it has been extremely difficult to bring export revenues and remittances to Sri Lanka through official channels due to the low confidence in the market. So, after that, if I talk about the impact on society, we know many people lost their jobs. Many people had to go to their homes by losing the major source of income they had earned for a numerous set of years. And also, the cost of living of people got really inflated because of the high poverty rates, high inflation. And one of the main problems is that the problems occurred in the health sector, risking the lives of many patients. So it is not actually a secret, or it is not something strange to admit or accept that these conditions, these situations these challenging times has caused a major impact to the economy as well as the society.
Yes, I'm 100% agreeing with what you said. So, Miss Inesha, as a long serving personality at HNB, what do you think about the impact on your bank because of all the economic transformations and transitions?
Yes, Prameel. The impact of financial crisis on banking sector is very deep, and since the start of the crisis, market capitalizing of global bank has fallen by more than half from $3.6 trillion to $1.6 trillion. While the value of preferred shares and subordinated debt has also fallen sharply. Economic crises invariably impact the bank by pushing up bad loans and constraining liquidity. This has and it like to continually help the bank relative better navigate through these challenging circumstances as Sri Lanka's deeply distressed macroeconomic environment continue to erode the quality of loan books across the industry. Sri Lanka is facing a challenging economic period and it's affected many industry and people. Now I explain how have the current economic condition impacted H.L.N. National Bank. As the backbone of any economy, the banking industry is a victim in the first instance of a macro level distress. Further, in view of addressing high inflation, the central bank increased policy rate by 700 basis points in April in 2021, which has seen interest rate on government securities overshooting to near 30% level, which were previously unseen. This has caused substantial earning pressure as deposit of bank have got repriced at a faster pace relative to their loan books. Banks are sensitive to change in interest rate become their customers up. It also determines the demand for credit. Now we see H.L.N. National Bank navigate the current interest rate environment. Bank are especially H.L.N. National Bank sensitive to changes in interest rate because their customers are. It is a very challenging. The key is, however, to strike the right balance. On one hand, deposit liabilities, which are close to 8% of total interest finding, get repriced faster. Needless to say, the higher rates are naturally attractive for depositors. This has resulted in many converting their savings to more significantly higher yield fixed deposit. On the other hand, if the assets are repriced at the same price, it will make it difficult to borrower to service their debt. So taking a balanced approach here is a key, particularly in the case of our retail and enterprise customers. One important aspect to keep in mind is that much of the fixed deposits are tenors of 1 year or less, and thus should interest rate come down in the short term, these depositors will get similarly repriced downward. Beside the inflationary impact of the rupee depreciation, loan book increase comprise loan granted within the bank, enhance precautionary risk parameters, and as warranted within a aligned economic with the negative gross domestic production goal. As well as remittance. Remittance is the most important point. Remittance to Sri Lankan bank have declined significantly since the pandemic, and even more so after the central bank fetch at rupee at 2,200 per dollar in October 2021, which prompted many from the Sri Lankan diaspora to switch the informal wire transfer service to obtain better exchange rate. From January to May of last time in 2021 and 2022, therefore the central bank recorded just $1.3 billion into total being received from foreign remittances. Less than half of the $2.8 billion received during the same 5-month period in 2021. Bank has experienced drastically reduced inflows of remittance this year. Despite the government reversing costs and unfetching the rupee and allowing it to depreciate, which in turn has further constrained their capacity to lend. Sri Lankan banking sector, especially Hatton National Bank, has not seen bad loan increase in past years as much as expected because regulator extended the pandemic-related moratorium several times.
Thank you so much for that mind awakening answer. So, finally, what do you think as per the remedies and recommendations to overcome these situations by your organization?
Yes, Prameel. So I guess Miss Hashini could do the honors. Hashini?
Yes, Sanuri. Actually, Prameel, if I share some recommendations with you and with our audience as well, so I would like to recommend the first measure we actually took is to ensure that our internal system are stabilized. Starting from our workforce to the operations that we run in the company, even though we saw a lot of corporation had to cut down their workforce, we prioritized not to create any employee cuts. We didn't penalize the workforce with salary cuts. And my second recommendation would be then again we consider the shareholders. One criteria we can measure the good shareholder relation in the share price. And if you look at the stock market prices, you will see that there is no sharp decline in HNB share price. And because if you take the last 1 to 2 years, we saw that as a whole share price dropped significantly, right? So, anything add to Sanuri?
Yes, Prameel. So just as Hashini said, in the last point, after considering the internal stability or the stability within the organization itself, of course, we are taking care of our shareholders because shareholders are one of our main key stakeholders. So we ensure that at a time where the share prices of all the other companies dropped down significantly, we were able to manage the share prices or there was no sharp decline in the HNB share prices. So another remedy or another recommendation that I could suggest from what we took as a measure is we also need to consider our customers. Customers is the center of our operations. We keep them at the center of our operations and everything what we do. So we as HNB, we always comply and go hand in hand with the policies set up by the central bank actually. So when they advise us to increase the interest rates, we did even under incurring losses. Because if they do something, if they advise us on something, if the central bank advise us on something, that is for the betterment of the entire economy, entire monetary and fiscal policy. So we have to abide by the policy set up by the main governing body of Sri Lanka. So another action that we took as a bank to be very purposeful is to actually launch many new programs in the rural areas to actually develop the financial literacy of the population and also to support the small and medium scale enterprises financially and to make sure that these vulnerable areas are strong enough to cope up with this negative economic impacts. And finally, one of the major recommendations that I could give as representative of HNB is there should be more entrepreneurs in this country. There should be people who can actually incur these losses or who could accept these negative situation in a very positive way when the entire economy is downgrading in the country. So there should be a barricade who can support the country or the economy in a very positive way by giving back. So I guess entrepreneurs are, or the self-employed people or self-owned businesses are the ones who can support us in this matter. So from our end as HNB, we are really proud as the number one private bank in Sri Lanka to join today and to give all the recommendations and remedies. And I guess Ms. Hashini could also agree with me. Hashini?
Of course, Sanuri, I would like to thank Prameel because without his not inviting us today, actually we can't answer these questions, and we can't share the knowledge with our audience, we can't share the knowledge with our general public, right? So thank once again Prameel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Sanuri, Miss Hashini, Miss Inesha, for all the valuable insight you all shared us with today. I'm sure that our audience gained a very clear understanding of today's discussion. Until we meet again with another insightful discussion, have a nice day.